Hey, what's up, you guys? And this is now, warning, this is spoilers. This is my spoiler review for The Matrix Resurrections, and I'm gonna try my best to decrypt this, pun intended. But I'm really sad. I'm really disappointed because I didn't have high expectations for this movie, but I did have somewhat like, you know, a little small high expectations. So, for those of you who've seen the movie, welcome. Feel free to hear my thoughts. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, once again, this is spoilers. So you can stop this video, go watch the movie. It's on HBO Max if you have it, or it's in theaters if you choose so to go see it in theaters. In my opinion, I wouldn't go see it in theaters. Thank God I didn't see it in theaters because I would have wanted my money back. But like I said, spoilers. Your final warning. If you haven't seen it, go away now. Um, I got Superman in the background because Neo basically is Superman. So in my spoiler-free review, I was explaining my love for the Matrix. I don't want to, rant on too long, or go, or ramble too long. But I love the Matrix. I don't want to say I love the whole trilogy, but I love Matrix 1 and 2. Matrix and Matrix Reloaded. I love Matrix Reloaded. I just do. It works for me. The story worked for me. The action is phenomenal. But of course, the first Matrix, is the pinnacle, of the films. Matrix Revolutions, I used to hate. I recently rewatched it because I marathoned all the Matrix films in a couple of days. And I it I, there was some parts. I guess now that I'm older now. There was some parts in Matrix Revol- Revolutions that I liked, and there were a lot of things that I didn't like. But recently rewatching it again, I guess I don't hate it as much as I used to. There was some things in the film that worked, but we're not here to talk about those films. We're here to talk about Matrix Resurrections. And I don't want to say I'm massively disappointed, but I am really fucking disappointed. Excuse my language, but I try not to curse on my channel because YouTube and and demonizations and stuff, but um this movie was a mess. It was just a complete casserole of nonsense and mess. The beginning kicks off. I don't know. I can't explain this movie. I only seen it once and I don't even want to see it again. Um, it's just so weird. The movie kicks off and it's like a parody of what the first film was. They're showing this woman recreating the scene that kicked off in the first Matrix when Trinity was on the phone. She was on the hotline. Agent Smith and the rest of the agents found her. She took the cops down. Like they were redoing all of this, but with another female. And it's like, I'm like, once this jumped off, I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to see what's going on here, trying to get into this. Then the guy who's Morpheus, this new Morpheus, uh, is Agent Smith, but then he's not Agent Smith, and then he goes to this new character, which her name is Bugs. Um, that's whatever, because she has a rabbit on her arm. It's just so much they tried to nostalgia bait you with the first Matrix film because that's what everybody loved, and they reference a lot of like they constantly reference the past films 1, 2, and 3. 3 not as much, but the first two films, mostly the first one. And it's just a weird, like I don't know what the hell was going, like I don't know who was in the writing room and it was like, yeah, this is a good idea, because the movie kicks up and I still don't know what the fuck is going on. I still don't, like, this Morpheus was with the agents, and then he chases down the Bugs character, this new girl played by Jessica Hedwig, and I do like her. I liked her in Netflix Iron Fist. I really liked her. She was a badass in there, I know who she is. But in this movie, I didn't care who she was. I just really didn't. I was here to see how, I wanted explanations of how Neo and Trinity, you know, were back. How their story was going to continue. Now, it's nothing wrong with adding new characters, but if you're going to do it the right way. So, yeah, I'm rambling because this movie is just hard to. I can't even. I probably might watch it one more time to see if I can understand this, but I swear to you guys, I cannot understand this film at all. Nothing in this film really worked for me. It was just a lot of weird meta humor jokes. They were really meta with this film. Neo is not a hacker. Now he works for a video game company that he created this video game that's called The Matrix. I'm all over the place because this movie is all over the damn place. It just is. This movie is a complete mess and a disaster. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to even review this freaking film because they just lost me. They lost me from the beginning, damn near to the end. So okay, let me try to go back to the beginning. So, oh my gosh. So I'm not gonna go beat for beat. I'm gonna try to just hit on certain points, but it's just so much of it just didn't make sense. Like you guys, like I said, it's on HBO Max. I recommend y'all do not go to the theater for this. Just watch it on HBO Max. And it's a shame for me to say that, unless you're diehard Matrix fans, which I am diehard Matrix fan, but I had worries about this film, and my worries will realize once I started watching it. So anyway, I'm still rambling, guys. Please forgive me. So this agent slash Morpheus guy says. So then he says to Bugs, he says, "I'm Morpheus," and then out of nowhere, out of the blue, she hugs him, and then they team up, and then they go back into they're already in the Matrix, so they go back to their base or whatever, and then so now they're looking for Neo. So then it kicks in with Neo, and like I said, Neo is a game designer, and he created this game called The Matrix, and it basically it's just so meta, and they reference how can you be meta and make so many references to the movie like remember how good the Matrix movie was? Like, remember how good it was? But you're doing this and it's so effed up. It's so terrible. Like, and disrespectful at the same time. Like, how could it be so disrespectful? And like I said, I hated the Morpheus character in here because I love Morpheus in the trilogy, Matrix 1 through 3. I do. I love his character. And he's so, I mean, I use the word beloved, because with me he is like when Morpheus speaks, you listen. But with this guy, it was just played for a joke. Like it was so disrespectful to the character. I can't get into all of it because I would be here for hours. But so they're trying to re-free Neo. And the whole thing is about setting Neo free again. So eventually they catch up with Neo. It's a lot of back and forth, it's a lot of exposition, it's a lot of is Neo they're asking you the question of is Neo was any of the events in all the Matrix films, was it real? Was it real? Like it's asking you those kind of questions, which I kind of did appreciate because, there was a few times I was like, did Neo, did he really, like imagine all this? Like, does he really have, a diagnosis. Like, those parts were kind of interesting, but then they just totally shit the bed and just totally mess everything up by all this back and forth. This movie is just so hard to follow, and it's ridiculous because as complex as the first Matrix film was, you still could follow it. And I still could follow Matrix Reloaded, and believe it or not, I was able to follow Revolutions. But this film was just so over the place. It's just so hard to follow. So Neo has some kind of diagnosis. He's taking blue pills. The machines have him in the Matrix, and he's a prisoner again. So these new freedom fighters are trying to set him free. Eventually, long story short, eventually they do. Um, he has a few scenes with Trinity. Trinity is not in this movie enough, not nearly enough. I love Trinity. She's my girl. I love her. I love Carrie-Anne Moss as an actress. And I love Keanu Reeves, and it's a shame because they really didn't deserve this. They deserve so much better. But so eventually, they free Neo, and then the next logical thing is they have to free Trinity. So the scenes I liked in this movie were the scenes between Neo and Trinity. They were really sweet and endearing, and you felt that love and connection between them. Now, a lot of people say that in the first Matrix film, oh, she just fell in love with Neo out of the blue. But you really have to, like, if these people really know the Matrix and really pay attention to it, like they say they do, you could see all the hints and nods and subtlety in the way how Trinity really did love him. Like, you really have to pay attention. And like when I rewatched it, I saw it. Like, Cypher, the bald-headed guy in the first movie, he was jealous of Neo because he knew that Trinity was in love with him, and he knew that Trinity believed that Neo was the one, which is true. Then the Oracle, she hinted at Neo in the first film. She said, I could see why she likes you. And then Neo said, who? And then Oracle said, not too bright. So obviously Trinity had feelings for him from the beginning. But it's very subtle, so you can miss it, but like you have to catch all those cues and hints. Anyway, I'm rambling again, but I love the love story between Neo and Trinity. It works for me. It worked in the first film, especially me rewatching it again. It still works for me. It worked in Matrix Reloaded. You see how much they loved each other. It worked. And even in Revolutions, it worked. It still worked. And even in this mess of a movie, through all this casserole of nonsense, the love between Neo and Trinity still worked. And that was the best. That was the only thing I could salvage from this movie, was Neo and Trinity. And the way how it ended, I was satisfied with the ending. And I feel that they should just leave the ending at that. Neo and Trinity, well, I guess, I'm jumping way ahead. But so anyway, Neo, he gets out. Jada Pinkett is in this movie. Now, I will give them hats off to makeup, because at first I thought they recast Niobe. I was like, what's going on here? But they didn't recast Niobe. That was Jada Pinkett, but she was in some good makeup. Like, I couldn't recognize her at first, but then I really looked at her face. I was like, oh shit, that's Jada. And, she did good in the role. She was all right. I don't really have too much bad. I mean, they could have did better with her, obviously. But I feel like they just shit all over Morpheus. I just felt like I hated the betrayal of Morpheus in this movie. I hated it so much. And he's by far the worst, to me, he's by far the worst part of this movie. I don't know where some people are getting it from, saying that, oh, he resembles Morpheus, and the way how he was acting, he acted like, no, he did not act like Morpheus at all. It was played for a goof, it was played for a joke, and I didn't appreciate it, and it pissed me off. It pissed me off. But like I said, the only thing I could salvage were the sweet moments between Neo and Trinity. It was very subtle. When they first met again, they didn't, like, they felt the love between each other, but they couldn't understand it. And then they started talking to each other, having conversations. They could feel something, but they just couldn't, because the machines had them uh, as a prisoner again. So, that was very interesting to me. If they would have just focused the movie on that, this movie could have been great. I could have loved it. But instead, they focused on all this other meta nonsense, trying to be respectful, but not be respectful, trying to, have the member berries. Oh, remember this? Remember how cool the Matrix was? They were quoting lines from the first Matrix, and and the Merovingian was in here and he was played for a joke. Like, say what you want, but the Merovingian, he was menacing in the Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions. Like, he would, but in here, he was played for laughs. Like, this movie was just, it was a travesty. Hollywood's really sometimes can suck. They are just killing franchises. Star Wars is barely hanging on by a thread. They killed the Matrix. Terminator, they killed Terminator, destroyed that. I mean, how many more franchises are going to be destroyed? You know what I mean? Like, how many more beloved franchises will be destroyed? So anyway, I'm going to have to cut this off because, like I said, it's just aggravating me, and this movie was a massive disappointment. I can't explain it because I can't really understand it. So Smith is in here. Of course, Hugo Weaving didn't come back either. And good on him because he deserved better than this movie. So thank God. But they got some other guy to be Smith, and the other guy who was Smith is who Neo was working with when he was working at the game company. So Smith this whole time was in disguise, and I'm just gonna Lord have mercy, this movie. this movie, like, I mean, I did not want to trash this movie so hard. Like, I was really rooting for this movie. I was rooting for Lana Wachowski. Like, I was really rooting. Like, I had my concerns and I was worried because I was like, Lord, like, where could this movie go? So Neo's therapist, turns out he was the main villain, because at first I wasn't even sure who the main villain was. I was like, okay, who's the villain? Is it Smith? And it turns out Smith wasn't the villain. Now, Neo and Smith they fought in this movie, they did fight, but it was just so climactic. Like, it wasn't even like, it didn't have the nowhere near the magic to me from the first two Matrix films. Like, when Neo fought Smith in Matrix 1, and then when he fought all the Smiths in Matrix Reloaded, it was epic. It was just, say what you want about Matrix Reloaded, I don't care, but it was fucking epic. But in here, it was just so anticlimactic. Like, I mean, you don't need big spectacles and CGI all the time, but there was CGI in this movie. There was, but I just felt it was in all the wrong places. Like, there was no innovation. It was just, the choreography looked lazy. Some of the people who were performing just didn't look like they knew what the hell they was doing. Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, to me. And Jessica Hedgerig, right? Because, she looked like she knows how to get down. So those are the only three. Like, fake Morpheus, fake Smith, just it just didn't work. Not even the action worked, and that's a damn shame. So, the rebellion helps Neo to save Trinity. So they come up with this plan where they're going to get her out of the Matrix, but it has to be her choice. Neo goes to his therapist slash the main villain in this film. I'm jumping to the end. And he goes to him and he says, look, let me talk to her. If I talk to Trinity and she says no, she says she wants to stay here, you could do with me whatever you want. But just to let you know, the people back on my ship are gonna unplug me, which means he's gonna die. So this evil therapist slash whatever he is, because I don't even know what he is. He's an evil a program or whatever, but he needed Neo and Trinity for some kind of, I don't know, some kind of hidden power or something. Like I said, I can't explain this film. But anyway, Neo wants to talk to Trinity one last time, give it one last effort. So in this film, Trinity was married with kids, and her name was Tiffany. So Tiffany bumped that Trinity because that's who she is. Trinity, um, she comes in on her Ducati bike. She walks in. She sees Neo. You know, they feel that love again, and then she says to Neo, she said, I played the game, and then she says to him, was that me? And he says to her, he kind of professes his love, but like he's trying to tell her like all of this is real. Like you think it's not, but everything in the Matrix, everything that I explained in the video game, everything, all of it is real. Now, I did appreciate this part. Like I said, the best parts of this movie was Neo and Trinity. And it was very endearing, and it did kind of touch me a little bit. So she said she rejected him at first. She said, "No, I'm sorry, it's too late." So Neo just basically bends down and just, he's just ready to die. They're gonna pull the plug, whatever, he's gonna die. But then Trinity looks back at him. She feels something. She feels it, and her fake husband is like, "Tiffany, come on, come on!" And then she just snaps. She says, "Don't call me that fucking name. My name is Trinity." And then that's when shit pops off. That's when this movie actually gets good. Is the end. So it's just this big action scene. Trinity starts kicking ass. She screams Neo's name. Neo, he screams her name. They reaching for each other. They fighting all these motherfuckers, like all these coded people, and whatever, they fighting. They fighting to get back to each other. They fighting for their love. I'm like, yes. I'm like, fuck yeah. Neo and Trinity, bitches. And evil therapist guy, he got some kind of weird bullet time powers. Like he uses Neo's powers against him. Now Neo in this movie is a little depowered. So anyway, more exposition stuff, so on and so on. So somehow, darn, I forgot how they escape. How they escape again? Right. So I guess, Lord, having a hard time remembering this movie. So anyway, they get help from their crew. They escape. Trinity hops on the boat. Well, they play another joke. They like, "Neo, can you still fly?" So he tries to fly and it doesn't work. It's played for a joke. They're like, "Well," and then Neo goes, "Well, that's not happening." So then Trinity, she jumps on her bike. She tells Neo to jump on. The rest of the freedom fighters are fighting, and the rest of the coded people coming, like everybody coming after them. And Neo is still doing his bullet time thing, but kind of like with a force push. So like, it was kind of badass, and seeing Neo and Trinity kick ass again, I enjoyed that part. So they were on a motorcycle. Neo's, force pushing all these motherfuckers, everybody coming after them. So skipping ahead some more, the crew members are having trouble, they all trying to help each other, yada, yada, yada. So cut to the roof part. So I was about to be pissed. I'm like, if they kill Neo and Trinity again, fuck this movie and fuck it to hell. Like I was ready to say F this movie to the high, because I was already at my point anyway. So I'm thinking that this is their last stand. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. They're going to die. They're going to go out with a bang, hopefully. So what happens is, these helicopters are coming, shooting at them. Neo is still using his bullet time and force push. He force pushed one of the missiles into the other helicopter. That was pretty cool. That was pretty awesome. You know, he was protecting Trinity with everything he got. You know, they embrace each other. They kiss. You know, you know, the machines, everybody are still coming after them. So then they take a jump. They take a leap. They take a leap of faith, and then you know, the people, the crew back on the ship was like, you know, can they make it? Can they make this jump? And obviously, the way how they jumped, it was like a suicide jump. Like you just can tell they were not going to make it, and Neil was not flying. So then the shocker happens. Spoiler for the ending: Trinity starts flying. That's right. That's right, bitches. Trinity. Now, this is going to be very divisive for a lot of people, but you know what? For me, it worked. And I'll explain at the end of this video why it worked for me. So Trinity starts flying and she grabs Neil. She got him by the arm. The helicopter's coming after them. And Neil's looking up at her. He's like, I'm not doing this. And then, you know, obviously it's her. Trinity is flying. So she got Neil's powers. She's the one now. She's the one. And then she looks at the helicopter and she's like, bye. and she takes Neil and flies the fuck off. I was like, fuck yeah. You damn right. At least out of all this nonsensical ass movie, at least I got that. So then they get back to the ship and it was a beautiful scene. Pardon me, guys. So they get back to the ship. It was a beautiful scene. They look at each other, they embrace, they hug each other, and you know, it was a beautiful scene. It was a very touching scene. And then so then after that, they so then after that, hang on, guys. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I didn't want my wife to get spoiled anything because while we were watching it, she got tired and she fell asleep last night. So you know, I just wanted to finish seeing this movie for herself. So yeah, so where was I? Right. So Neil and Trinity, they embraced, and it was a beautiful moment, and I loved it. You know, I just ate it up. Like I said, I love the love story between Neil and Trinity. And yeah, so they embrace. So then cuts to another scene. So it's the a-hole therapist that was messing with Neil from the beginning. You know, he's the big villain. Oh, and one more thing. Smith helps fake Smith, or what? It's Smith, but whatever. He helps Neil, and it's just so weird. Like there's no reason. Like he just says something. He just says something one off. Like right. That's what happened when Neil and Trinity got help escaping. Smith helped them. So I missed that part, guys. Yeah. So I just remembered it. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, is this the same Agent Smith that we knew from the 3 movies that's just plain evil? And now he's helping them for what reason? Like, what's the reason? So anyway, so okay, yeah. So back to where I was. So back to the therapist. He's still alive. Smith shot him in the head multiple times, but he's a high program, whatever. So Trinity comes flying in like a woof, like she comes full force and powerful, flying in like a mofo. And she basically whoops the therapist's ass, like for everything he did, everything he put her and Neil through. This part was kind of funny for me. I did rewind it a couple of times and I kind of chuckled. She slit his throat. She broke his jaw loose, and she snapped her fingers, and then it came back into place. Then she sliced his throat. Then she punched the shit out of him and knocked him up against it. And then he was like, he looked at Neil. He was like, "Can you control her?" Like, and then she was like, "This is for using kids." Like, gave her fake kids, fake husband. Took Neil from us. Like, she was just letting loose, and I was eating it up. I was enjoying it. So he was like, "So what are you gonna do? You can do whatever you want. You can rewrite the program, make it rainbows, make it sunset, do whatever you want." So he was like, or excuse me for that, guys. Or he was like, or we can make a deal. You can make a deal. And Trinity looked at him. She looked at Neil. They was like, "We're not here to make a deal." And then she was like, "So what did you say? We could remake the Matrix, make it sunset and rainbow." She said, "I like that idea." So, just I loved it. I loved this in part. That is what I will say. That's why I'll give it 2 stars, and I feel I'm being generous because this movie is a giant, like I said, casserole of nonsense. But that ending was sweet, and what's so awesome about the end is that Neo and Trinity fly off together. They both. It's not just her being the one. Like, some people might consider like, "Oh, this is feminist bullshit," and now Trinity is the one. No, they're both the one. Neo and Trinity together. So after all they've been through, they're both going to rewrite the Matrix as they see fit, and they're going to free more minds. Like she said to that a-hole therapist, she said, "We're going to set things right. We're going to make things right. We're going to free more minds than you ever saw." Because he was like, "These minds don't want to be free. They want to be here. They want to be." And Trinity was like, "Oh yeah, we'll see." So yeah, so they both flew off together at the end, and I loved it. I loved the ending because I thought it was beautiful. I thought out of all this nonsensical, meta, weird, nostalgia bait, all this casserole of nonsense, the only scenes I really loved in this movie were between Neo and Trinity. That's it. And if the movie would have just focused on that instead of all this other new nonsensical nonsense, this movie could have been a lot better. And I think the broadband audience would have loved it a lot better. Now, it's complicated to understand how Trinity has Neo's powers now. I don't really fully understand it. I guess I'm gonna have to watch this damn movie again to try to see if I can understand it, or maybe I'll see how people will depict it on YouTube. So yeah, this movie is very very divisive, whatever you want to call it, is very divisive, and I think it's going to continue to be. And I was reading a headline before I started recording that the actors said that they want to get started on a sequel right now. Now, some of the bad stuff. Lana Wachowski, she didn't want to do this movie. She didn't want to do it. I guess WB